Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Houston Element Podcast. My name is Missy, and I'm your host. And today, we're hosting, another special remote episode via Zoom. Okay, we're here with a local small business owner, entrepreneur that does wood carving and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, we have from Lifted Woodworks. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Daniel. I'm here with Lifted Woodworks.
Hello.
Did you want me to just go ahead and go into my description and everything?
Yes, if you can go ahead and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. So I am I'm a one-man shop. So I create custom pieces of I would call them functional art for smokers, vapors. I do a lot of regular different woodworking, but that's the focus of this. So it's a kind of a mix of like machine and handwork. That's about it.
Excellent, man. So how did you first get started working in this field?
So I started woodworking when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My dad wasn't around, so I spent a lot of time with them, and almost every weekend we would make something. And a lot of times it was just for fun, but some of the stuff that we made was like stuff we really needed, and that kind of stuck with me. And so throughout my life, I'm one of those people that I'll look at something and I'll be like, no, I'm going to make that. I don't need to buy that. And that's kind of where it started. And then, of course, over time, I needed different tools to do different things. And eventually I got a whole shop and I'm making stuff for people. So I've been making things my entire life. This just happened to be the media, I guess, that stuck.
Okay, nice. So what is it about the medium and of using wood that you enjoy so much, of all the mediums you could use?
I'm kind of one of those like natural, like hippie type people where I love the fact that it's like it's natural. It comes from the planet. We're going to like do something with it. It grew for a while. We're going to do something with it. Eventually it's going to go back, it'll, years and years down the line, it's going to end up rotting away and becoming, whatever dirt again. So I love the kind of circle of it, but I also love that, during our lifetime, it's something that's pretty permanent during our lifetime anyway. So it's not just another disposable thing that I can get at Walmart.
Yeah, that's true. It is a recyclable organic material that doesn't seem to go away. It somehow will die and come back to life. And that's a whole long discussion for another day. So when did you first found Lifted Woodworks?
So I didn't start this until probably late last year or the beginning of this year. I started the sort of like parent company, I guess I would call it, right at the beginning of the pandemic. That's when I first started to sell woodworking. But everybody kept asking me to make trays, and that kind of didn't line up with my other thing. So I separated it off, and that's when I started this. And, even to this day, it's not a lot of, I have an Etsy shop, I have a website, but most of it is through Instagram. People reaching out for, random custom pieces, and work with a couple of companies and things like that, but not even a full year old yet.
Wow, that's impressive. So, and you just using the resources that are available to you now in the 21st century, and reaching people even outside of Texas, I'm sure.
Yeah, mostly outside of Texas, honestly. I'll use Discord, and I've met people through Instagram, and it kind of spread that way. I haven't ever even done any advertising yet. So it's been, I wouldn't say I'm making a ton of money off of it, but I'm having fun with it and making a lot of cool custom ones. So
nice. And so what is a brief, oh, wait, I skipped a question. Just kidding. So you can tell us a little bit more about what kind of services that you specialize in the wood carving area.
Sure. So I have a CNC machine. So it's a lot. It's kind of it's not really new technology, but it's different. It's kind of half computer, half wood. So I can basically I can go in and do my design, and I can CNC carve it. And I like it because I can do a lot more intricate details than I could do by hand. A lot of the stuff, you can do by hand, but I can get an exact, detail on there. And on top of that, it's nice to be able to be working on one thing while the machine has got my other project going. So that's one of the big things right now is those trays. That's my biggest kind of specialty with this is different trays. So it's really a lot of the same design of tray, but my favorite thing is just taking logos or different graphics that people make. A couple of the ones that I have out on Instagram, some of my friends have sent me, and just said, hey, could you do this on a tray? And so I like to do kind of weird, complicated stuff like that.
Excellent. So, on your website, you also mentioned that you use a lot of different kind of woods that you work with. So is there any special reason why you use different kind of woods for different projects?
Sure. So the first thing, honestly, when I first got into this, I was just out there. Every time I'd see an interesting piece of wood, I was like, I gotta have some of that. I have to have some of that. But over the years, I kind of noticed that as I was talking to people and I asked what type of wood, they'd say either light or dark. And, they didn't really, unless you're a woodworker, like into that kind of thing, you don't know all these different names of things. So I whittled it down based on a couple of different things. First, I had to be able to get a hold of it all the time. But mostly the biggest thing here, and this is like, I'm not trying to go south here or anything, but a lot of the wood industry out there is just terrible. It's like illegal logging, all that kind of stuff. So I make sure that I get my stuff responsibly. I actually get it out of it's South Carolina where I get it, because I know that place is very picky about what they use. And so that kind of cuts out a lot of those exotics and stuff that you can find, because they're not, usually doing that so responsibly. So I'll use a few things here and there if I can find it. But the biggest thing is, how was it? How did you get it? I don't want to push that industry along anymore. But secondly, a lot of wood is actually toxic, and people don't know that or think about it. But, you have to think about these trees are just giants in nature, and they are like living for 60, 80, 100 years. Something keeps them from being killed by the competition, and so most of them have some sort of chemical or something that is toxic. But so you don't want to use certain things on like things that are going to be near or around people consuming or anything like that. So that's the big thing with my trays, or even in my other stuff, cutting boards, things like that, is it safe? Like I can make something that looks awesome, but if you chop into it and a little splinter gets into your finger, is it going to be a problem? So that's one. Those are the two big things. The third one is kind of selfish. Sometimes wood is hard to work with, because some of those woods, you have softwood and hardwood. Some of these woods are really hard to where they're breaking tools. It's hard to work with. So there's like a happy medium in there between something that's going to fall apart and then something that is like concrete, basically. And those are the three kind of ways that I pick it. But I use a lot of cherry, walnut, and maple. And I can use other things or combinations, but those are usually what people want.
And those are the things we as, consumers, we don't think about is like, oh, I'm going to get this cutting board or this tray because I think it's pretty. And then you don't realize that, well, maybe the material isn't going to last or it could be toxic. So I appreciate that, you do your diligence in making sure that, safety is coming with the quality.
Definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. So can you give us a brief, I know this is kind of a vague question, but can you give us a brief explanation of what the creative process is like?
Sure. So I wrote this all down, and I realized it wasn't such a brief explanation when I wrote it down. So really depending on where I start, if somebody just wants a plain tray, which does happen sometimes, I have the template. I can go out and I can make one in a couple of steps, just carving it and sanding it and finishing it. It's done. But a lot of the times, people just send me like a JPEG picture or something, or a fuzzy graphic or something, and so I'll have to a lot of the times I have to go in and do quite a bit of graphic work with that to make it something that I can carve. That's where I would say the majority of my time is spent when I'm making these custom pieces, because they're all going to be so different, and it's kind of a one-off, so I can't use the same one as before. And so beyond that, once I get that graphic carvable and everything, I can carve it pretty quick. But depending on how many colors, it's not uncommon for one to take, maybe 5, 6, 7 days even, because I'll have those resins, they take about 8 hours to dry and cure each step. So if I need to use 10 colors, that's, 80 hours almost that I've probably got waiting in that. So it's not a lot of always hands-on time, but it's a lot of wait time sometimes. But from there, once it comes out of the machine, that's there's a lot of in the kind of woodworking community, there's a lot of trash talk about CNC machines and how it's doing everything for you, but it really doesn't. It leaves it kind of nasty marks all over the place, and so there's a lot of hand finishing too. And I am literally over here with a couple of sanders and a couple of blocks and sandpaper, and that's where. Beyond the resin, that's the longest part of the process.
And for implementing the design, I saw some of your pictures online, is it actually like a nail that's digging through it or carving it out?
Yep. Yeah, so it's I'll use a couple of different bits that that I'm working with, and it's if you've ever seen a trim router, it's like a little machine that'll put an edge on wood, basically. So this CNC is just one of those routers operated by a computer. So it has, there's a couple of bits, one that's flat to kind of pocket it out. And then there's one that's a point, a really fine, 30-degree point. And that's where I get that fine detail in there. They're pretty small. Some of the bits that I use are pretty small, but it's fun to work with them though, because you could never get that level of detail with just hands and a router.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's really impressive. And I remember the term CNC machinist because I used to work at HCC for a couple of years, and that was a part of the machine program as well. So I know what you do is very complicated.
I've loved to do, computer stuff my whole life, my website and all that. I made those, and, in a past life, I guess I would say it is, I was into web design and web development and stuff. So that's what I used to do when I was younger.
Oh my goodness.
I like the computer stuff.
And bless your heart, just like with us engineers, when we get bad beat tracks, you have to redo the graphic tracks. Bless your heart.
Oh, what's funny is I have your tray here, and I actually, this is the second one I made because I messed up on the. It was the dots were so fine that I kept messing. My machine was off just a tiny little bit. And so it would get to those really fine dots and it would skip. and like go to the other side. So sometimes it's like that, where you gotta redo it. I'm pretty picky about stuff that I let out the door. So I will sometimes redo it a couple of times if the machine is messing up on me or I need to adjust something. It happens.
Oh my God. I don't even want to imagine what your troubleshooting list looks like when your machine starts messing up. I don't envy you. I don't envy you. And so you kind of already told us earlier about how long the process takes. It could depend because the resin you say the resin would take the most hurry up and wait portion of the process because it has to dry.
Yeah, it does. It takes quite a bit. Aside from that, the like kind of part that takes the longest is just the sanding, and that part will take the longest, especially if I choose one of those harder, like the harder the wood, the longer it's going to take me to sand those lines out of it. So it just depends, but usually probably about 45 minutes to an hour, like per tray of just sanding.
Oh my God. Oh my God. No.
I just put my headphones in. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to a lot of music. And I just kind of keep myself occupied, and it's almost, it's all, like my stepdad always said that his like side thing was like therapy, and I get it because it's like I'll be out there after a long like regular work day, and I've got my headphones on and I can just kind of go at it for a while and zone out. So I get it. It is, it is a lot of work, but I like it, and it's relaxing at the same time.
So do you try to do just one project like a week or in a certain amount of time, or?
It really depends because, it like some weeks I'm really busy at my regular job, or maybe I just don't have any orders, at the time. But I do try and make like a couple of one-off designs. Like every once in a while, I'll just randomly think of a few and I'll put them out there. There's a few that I made recently because I went to a show, and I was a vendor at one of those shows. And so there's a couple of like, astronaut ones and things like that. So I'll make some cool stuff like that every once in a while. I've got a few more that I'm going to try and get done this weekend. I've got a bunch of trays that I have to make this weekend, but try and get a couple more out there. I try and put a few of those like cool random designs out, at least once a month or 2 times a month, something like that.
Okay. Right on, man. So what would you say is one of the most tedious parts about the creating process besides the waiting, the hurry up and wait, of course?
The sanding, for sure. The sanding wood is funny. It's all like, it doesn't look like it, but it's basically just a bunch of little straws laid out next to each other. And so as you're sanding it, you're pressing it all down and compressing it. You get it. It looks really good. And then as soon as that fiber like stands back up again, it looks gross again.
Oh no.
It's all fuzzy and stuff, and that's just how wood works. So like if somebody doesn't know, they'll go and sand it and everything, and then they'll go and put the oil on it, and that oil will pop the grain and it'll make it all fuzzy again. And so it's like a lot of steps. Like you have to pop the grain and then re-sand it again so that doesn't keep happening. It's, but again, it's one of those things. It does take a long time and it is tedious, but I put my headphones in and I kind of have fun with it anyway. So.
Yeah, because your final products are, immaculate looking, like, not a split, like you said, hair out of place kind of thing. But
thank you.
You're welcome. Do you try to make sure, like, do you have a fan going in, or you try to make sure there's like no wind or nothing like that can cause it to keep,
So I have like a lot of dust collectors. So I, by the CNC machine, I have one, and then there's one on the front side of my shop that's like a giant turbo, basically, that, I try and keep dust to a minimum. But what I've, with the finish that I use, and I mentioned it in one of the other questions. I can't remember what it was. But the finish I use, I do it inside because I finish these in my kitchen because I use the same finish that I'll use on my cutting boards. And so it's not, it's one of those things that's very forgiving. Like if you've ever used a cutting board oil or a wax, I make this wax too. So, I that's one of the these about it. I know I meant to mention my other one, but I make the wax because I know that it's food safe. So I get this beeswax literally from a bee farmer, and it's like, it's not like refined or anything. I get mineral oil, and then I can make this wax, and it lasts for so long. But it's awesome too because it's not one of those things like paint where if you you're painting and like a bug lands in it or like something falls into it, it's going to ruin it. It's pretty forgiving. But that's another thing about, these trays over other kind of stuff. It's all natural. It's all organic. So.
Oh yes. And I mean, beeswax is pretty much good for everything.
And I forgot to mention I do. So I know, and I was a vegetarian for like 3 years. Me and my wife went vegetarian for like 3 years. So I know that some people don't want to use beeswax, and I do actually. I have a fully vegan option too. I've never been asked for it, but I just want to put it out there that I did make one, and so I do have a fully vegan option too. If anybody's ever interested in something like that, that's just something they've got to ask for. Nobody's ever asked me though. I thought they would at some point, but
I'm sure they will now. They probably just didn't realize, but now that you mentioned it to us, I'm sure you're going to get a lot more requests. And so what would you say is the best way for the consumer to clean and maintain their creation? Because, with wood, we don't want it to morph, stain.
Definitely. And so I've played around with the thicknesses on these things quite a bit, to where they shouldn't have any warping issues, even if you do get them wet. Now I wouldn't, put it in a sink full of water and let it like soak or anything. But if say like something got on it and you needed to get a paper towel with water or something and like wipe it off, it's not going to hurt it at all.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I clean them too, is with a cloth and some water or whatever. You can even use a little bit of soap, but just make sure that when you're, if you get it wet and it's like, you can feel it's still wet when you're done, just prop it up and like let it dry out. And then just, same thing with that cutting board oil. I don't right now, but it's something that I'm going to offer like containers of in the future.
Okay. Nice.
Because it's easy to make a lot of it and it's not expensive, but you can't really find it out there. This wax that I make, it's not something I made up or anything, but it's really good and it's not something you can easily get a hold of. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, like I don't recall. Excuse me. I don't recall seeing that in the store either, so that's
it's usually liquids that they tend to sell, and those are fine. I just think the wax, it's that extra kind of protection, and it keeps it from, like, maybe if you got it sitting on a table and somebody spills something and somebody's soda goes pouring it into the side of your tray or something, that beeswax, it's that extra, waxy layer to kind of keep it protected. So it's not completely waterproof, but definitely resistant compared to just like a clear coat or something like that.
Yeah, definitely you would want to protect something like that, especially like a one-of-a-kind creation,
Definitely.
And so based on your experience, what is the benefit of using, you kind of explained this a little bit about using, I just can't read, never mind. So based on your experience, what would you say is the benefit of using wood versus plastic for the wood trays and for the cutting boards?
So it kind of goes back to, it being natural. And I think as like society in general, I think we have a massive plastic problem out there. And I don't want to contribute to it much more than I already have. All of us have been, anybody that lived through the 90s did bottled water like so bad. So, but on top of that, even plastic is gross after a while. Like you can't have, they say like, oh, this lasts forever, but you have a Tupperware or something that you've washed a bunch of times, like they get gross. And I don't know. Maybe not all of us have had plastic trays or things like that. They get scraped up. Where's that plastic going when it's getting scraped up or chipping off and everything? And it just, it doesn't look nice. It doesn't feel nice. And it's a big problem overall. So I just think something like, you could use one of these your entire life and then maybe like it, falls on the ground or something later. It's not just going to sit there forever. It's not going to be some trash island in the middle of the ocean or whatever. So I think that's a big thing with society and all of us in general. Is it's so easy to go out and get a plastic anything. But it's not going to last forever for our purpose, but then it is going to last forever when we throw it away. So that's the main thing, I think, is wood. It just looks better. It feels like warmer in the first place, and it's just nicer overall.
Agreed. I imagine, wood carving boards and trays, when you're cooking, for Thanksgiving or, whatever kind of family meal, plastic is kind of like, oh, so we weren't special? Like, oh, you just got the plastic out. Okay, fine. Like, so next question is kind of a hot topic. But since the legalization of CBD, have you noticed that there's been an inflection in sales? Or is there any kind of regulations you need to practice to maintain that, you don't get red flagged for some reason as being, as working outside of the legal terms?
Yeah. So I've thought about it for sure. And one of the things was at one point, and I still do want to do this. I'm just not sure how I will, is I want to like gather pictures of people using these things and things like that, but I don't know exactly how to deal with that so far just yet. So, yeah, I definitely stay outside of that whole thing. I've seen a lot of people like vendors with CBD and things like that. And I want to work with them for sure. But I don't want to get involved in any of that. Any of where they have to consider whether it's legal or not, I don't want to take my chances there. So I'll make this stuff, and if they want their logos on it, things like that, I'm happy to work with them. I've worked with a lot of people in those legal states. So, I get it. It's different everywhere. So you kind of got to work with it however it is.
Yes, understandable. To my knowledge, even, in the legal states, there's a lot of, paperwork and permits involved for opening up shops and things of that nature. So it sounds kind of like a headache.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And, and I've tried to work with a lot of head shops or smoke shops, whatever you want to call them. And they're all, nobody wants to buy them at that price is what they're, nobody wants to do they don't want to work with it unless they are going to make a ton of money off of it. But I'm working with this place in California that is called Growers Workshop, and they're going to be listing a specific tray that I make with their logo on it on their website for $100. They're going to be selling them for $100 because that's their specific thing, and I'm not going to make it for anybody else. But I sell them that size. Normally, I sell them for 60 or 65, and it is a lot. But that's the thing; it's not it's not like a crappy little metal tray that you're gonna throw in a drawer or something down the line. And it's
it's not just like another piece of plastic that you didn't ask for. It's like an extra little thing that came in a package. And so I would love to work with some smoke shops around here, but, it just depends. I guess I got to find the right ones that are willing to kind of look outside the box. And, I think a lot of that is they're looking at, who is normally coming in there, and maybe that's not necessarily who it's for. Maybe this is for maybe like the more discerning smoker or whatever. I'm not sure, but I know that it's not for everybody for sure. But for me, I'll make the trays, and whoever wants them, I'm happy to work with them on it. But I get it if they, also are like, I don't want to do this because it's kind of expensive. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of, still a lot of hoops involved and red tape, unfortunately. But, I think the way that you got your setup, established your website and everything, and even your prices, everything seems very reasonable, and, applicable to anybody, It's not just advocating for one thing. It's for, like you said, if you like the service, here it is.
Definitely.
And so without releasing too much sensitive info, have you noticed that there's any people like that were placing orders saying, some people, not saying myself, don't like their medicine in a pill format, So maybe they might ask, I need an order because my medicine is not a pill format. Have you noticed any kind of request like that?
Definitely. I think overall, especially being like a 90s kid, I guess, like there was such a negative stigma. And even though like I like personally have never like felt that way, I also still like, it's like, are these people out there doing anything wrong? Like, because that's what we like grew up on, it was like so demonized. And so I think that people are becoming a lot more open-minded about it. It's been legalized in certain parts of the country for over a decade now. It's crazy that it's still not everywhere, but definitely like people are looking at it as like a medication now compared to when, back in the 90s when it was just like, it was what it was. Like people can go for specific things. And I know people that specifically they're like, this is literally the only thing that touches their like epilepsy or whatever. Even the medications that they were on that they were paying, hundreds of dollars for weren't doing that. And I don't have anything. I haven't had anything like specific like pop up outside of that. But I think in general, people are definitely looking at it as a medicine these days over what it was in the 90s, like a negative.
Indeed. And here in Texas, now we're starting to see certain select physicians offer medical CBD, which is great. That is a step in the right direction. But, number one, and I'm going to say it, fuck cancer. You know what I'm saying? If giving somebody a high five is going to save their life, do it. If CBD medicinal through your providers, do it. Whatever, But don't deny somebody medicine.
Well, and beyond that, that's a big one, but even beyond that, there's people out there every day that just cannot handle public. They can't, I have friends and family who were paramedics, and not saying they can't handle public, but I'm saying that they came away with some trauma and like people are using this as like PTSD treatment. They're using it for anxiety. They're using it for pain. It's for like everything at this point. People are very open to that, I think.
Indeed. Again, talk to your doctor. We're not physicians here, talk to your doctor, follow their rules and guidelines, you know what I'm saying? But the point is, don't shut the door on somebody that needs help. And I like that you're offering your help in however you can.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm never going to go out and tell anybody like, hey, buy these trays and then get this and that's going to fix all your anxiety. Definitely, work with do your own research for sure on that kind of stuff. But it's definitely, there are options out there for sure.
Indeed. Just like using wood versus plastic, do your research on it and learn some things. And so I have to ask, dealing with a CNC machine, even if you're not hands-on entirely, have you ever had any close encounters and, heaven forbid, accidents working with any kind of wood carving creation?
Yeah, I do have all my fingers still, so I think that's pretty good as a woodworker. But a lot of times it's usually like the silly stuff, like you're getting used to doing something over and over again, and you are being maybe like complacent about it a little bit. And my kind of thing with that is sanding. I use a couple of like power sanders at the same time. A lot of it is by hand, but some of it is machine too. So when I am using those sanding machines, every once in a while I'll catch my finger or something on it because these trays, they're not thin, but they're I'm pretty close to the machine whenever it's happening. So every once in a while it happens. The worst is like a fingernail or something, and it's not that it even really like hurts. It's that it just leaves your fingernail all jagged and gross for a while. So. But I've never, with the CNC machine, I've never actually hurt myself on that. Thankfully, it's pretty good. It turns itself off when it stops moving and everything. But saws and sanders and things like that, I've had pretty close encounters with all of them. So you got to be careful with those things. It's like everything, though. If you like start getting too used to it, getting too comfortable, and then you stop paying attention, bad stuff can happen. So.
Oh, I would have to change my pants if I lost, something. Just the thought of like, oh no, thank you. And so, do you have any plans to try to do any kind of events, pop-up events or something like that to promote your business in the future?
So I love doing events, but there just haven't been a lot of opportunities, I think, within the last couple of years especially. But I went to 3 this year, which isn't a lot. I went to 2 of them where one of my friends is Davian with Tend to Get In. And so he invited me out to a couple of them. And then we met another person at one of his events that was running an event. It was a We the People, I think. Mm-hmm. And so I was a vendor out at one of their shows too. So I like doing those shows. And honestly, it's like I haven't ever made a ton of money vending out. I just like to go hang out with my friends, So it's I'll go hang out and talk to a bunch of people, get a couple of Instagram follows, and just hang out. So I do plan to do more. I just don't know when. I don't have anything in the immediate plans, but I'm sure it will come up, and I'll be out there.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I've been to a couple of art pop-ups and things like that, and I understand. I've seen my painter friend set up, and I've seen how much work is involved, for you guys to maybe sell 3 pieces if it's not a busy day. Like, if it's not on the weekend, it's not worth doing the pop-up, Yeah.
I like to go out and, people ask me questions about it, and I get a lot of requests for like custom stuff out there. So, I do get some stuff from it. But I sell a lot on Instagram. People see it on Instagram and they'll message me. And I have an Etsy shop opened up too, just because it's, some people like Etsy. So, there's not as much on there as on my website, but when I go out, it's usually kind of fun because honestly, a lot of the stuff when I go out, I'm making this stuff like right before I go out. And so sometimes you'll catch me out and I haven't listed it or anything yet. And it'll be, kind of a one-off thing that isn't going to be made again usually. So that's what I like about the local stuff, but hopefully get some more chances to do that this year.
Excellent. Excellent, man. And I look forward to it, man. I love going out to those kind of pop-up events with local vendors and small businesses, because it's stuff, usually handcrafted stuff you don't get to see anywhere else.
Definitely. There's just not as, I think that's a big thing about it is there should be more of these like small business events because there's so much corporate stuff out there. And it's, there's nowhere, even around Houston, like my area, I live in kind of the Spring area. And when I moved here forever ago, like 15 something, maybe 16 years ago, maybe longer now, I don't know. It was like empty, but now it's like, the same pile of shops everywhere. It's always like Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, all those different shops. But there's not enough of these little events and stuff. So I definitely like going out and seeing what everybody's doing. And usually there's some like awesome food there too. You got to have that. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Okay. For real.
I forget what was at that We the People one, but it was like tacos and they were so good. They had like a flat top grill right outside the door. So you could just walk out and order tacos.
Oh, taco trucks, man.
Yeah. Only in Houston though. I didn't grow up here and I didn't see that until I moved here. And now there's food trucks everywhere, but I think that it started here. It had to have.
Yeah. And taco trucks, I mean, it could be any time of the day or night and you're going to run into a good taco truck.
Definitely. Somewhere there's a taco truck happening.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Definitely. I really appreciate the shout outs and the time. It was awesome.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know we had a little connection issue in the beginning, but we resolved it. So I'm glad and thank you for working with us to make it happen.
No worries. So
do you have any last little bit of advice for the listeners?
So I think that this is going to sound cheesy no matter which way I put it, but I just want to say, like everybody's doing their day job thing out there. And this is like a silly, like kind of quote thing that kind of stuck with me. I read this forever ago. And it's The Rock. Okay. It's Dwayne Johnson. It makes it even cheesier. But what he said was, don't work 8 hours for a company, then go home and not work on your own goals. You're not tired. You're uninspired. And like, that always kind of hit me and like stuck with me. And so, we're all tired. We're all having a time out here right now. It's hard times. But like, come home, do your stuff, like do something, whether that's making something. I have friends that are music artists. And I've got other friends that are running their own things. So like, do what that's like one thing that I learned in adulthood that like helped me out is like, do something with whatever you love. Like, whether that's making money or not, like get it out there and do it, and do something that you like, even if you only have a couple hours a day to do it.
Okay. I mean, like, you heard it from the man yourself. Okay. Spend time doing what you love. Don't worry about the reward, because the reward is that you're doing something that you love. Period. Okay. So what is the best way to get orders for one of these beautiful creations?
So right now, my website, it does have some like pre-made on there. I am working on a custom order page. But up until that point, if you're interested in anything, you can find me on Instagram. It's just at Lifted Woodworks, and shoot me a message. I'm usually pretty good about getting back to you, and we can, work through text or whatever that we need to get it done. But you can find me on Etsy. You can message me, on Instagram, or send me an email through the website.
All right. So you heard it from him. You can find him again on Instagram at Lifted Woodworks. Okay. And don't be shy. Christmas is right around the corner. Okay. You gon' yeah. Nothing says I love you like a handcrafted piece of art. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.